Roll call.
Good afternoon. For the record, this meeting was posted to our website and the Secretary of State's website on March 22nd. Roll call. Hidalgo County,
Present.
City of Bronzeville, Cameron County,
Casually.
City of McAllen, City of Edinburgh, City of Mission, City of Harlingen, City of FAR, Starr County, City of San Benito, Cameron County RMA, Hidalgo County RMA, Valley Metro, TxDOT. Oh, he's here. Oh, okay. Roll call, quorum. Thank you.
I was thinking we might get some Category 2 monies today. We'll just start spreading it out. Pete's not here. Yeah. Item number 3, public comments. We have anybody sign up? No, we don't. We have anybody that interested? Anybody online, anything? Okay. We'll go ahead and move to item number 4, action and discussion items. Approval of, letter A, approval of the minutes for February 28th, 2024. They were included in your package. Page 6 on your agenda. Are there any comments, changes, anything we need to consider? We got a motion from Cameron County RMA, second by Hidalgo County RMA. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you. Item B, discussion and action on the May 2024 statewide transportation improvement program revision cycle. Rudy?
Thank you, Chairman, and good afternoon to all of our board members. So first and foremost, I'd like to start with the fact that we're still currently under public involvement. This concludes on March 31st. Began on March 1st, so we're doing our monthly public involvement right now. We had 3 successful in-person events so far. The February revisions are just about approved. We've heard April 2nd is the date that they have set for approval. If we hear otherwise, we'll be letting everybody know the May revisions are due in the e-STIP portal immediately after. So therefore, we do need the policy board's approval of these revisions today. In front of you is a hard copy that I passed out before the meeting started. Some additional revisions that weren't included in the policy board packet. These revisions include 4 projects from the Cameron County area. They are reallocating funds from one of their projects, the Morrison Road project. It's currently in fiscal year 2032. They will be reallocating the Category 7 funding from that project to 3 other projects. 2 of them are Old Alice Road, 1 highway and 1 sidewalk project. The other one is State Highway 550. Now the remaining revisions and amendments are included in the packet and are listed on the summary sheet, and those are for both highway and transit. If there's any questions, comments, or concerns regarding those changes, I'd be happy to address those at this time.
So to be clear, I think with this amendment, there's no movement of money, just a reallocation between projects, one moving in and one moving out, correct?
Yes, sir, that's correct.
All right, so there's no real fiscal impact.
No additional funds being added to any additional projects. No,
all right, and I'm sorry? Budget neutral, yeah.
It's a great way to put it.
Zero base, zero base. Yes.
And so, of course, we'll be seeking any additional funding for projects at a later date. We'll continue working with our local governments as we proceed into creating the new TIP for years 25 to 28. We anticipate adoption of the new UTP, which would be the 2025 UTP in August. And we'll also be working with Alliance Transportation Group, who we've contracted for our new 2050 MTP. Just some items to look forward to here in the near future. But as I mentioned, any other questions or concerns regarding revisions?
Public comments in today? Is that right? 31st.
For the ones in front of you today? For both. So everything that's included in the packet on the summary sheet was received prior to the TAC, so the advisory committee meeting, for public involvement for the May 2024 revision cycle. So this is our last quarterly revision cycle for this particular TIP that we're in right now.
And just as a side note, if you would make sure your microphone is on, just so that online and present we can hear the question. So the question was, who submitted these changes, correct?
Yes.
So it's the local government usually?
That's correct. Local governments submit these revisions. Staff only receives the updates from the local governments, or if we're on system projects, from our partners at TxDOT.
The rest of the amendments were included in the package. Are there any other questions or comments?
Yeah, Chairman, I just wanted to bring up something just under this item, just in general, maybe for some guidance.
Sure.
So there was bonds issued prior to me getting elected for a piece of roadway to expand it. And we're just kind of now going through the process, right, to acquire the right-of-way, getting it prepared to include it on this list and this, that, and the other. But, so I had a question, because, people are against it, right? Because they didn't know about it, and, I'm just kind of curious if early on in the process, before it's even on the list, when all of us cities are working on trying to get it prepared, is there a requirement, let's say, to have a public hearing, or is there something that y'all would suggest that cities have? Because sometimes that doesn't come till later, right? That's not going to come till, in this particular case, this roadway is not anywhere near close to, but it is a sectional roadway that the city had identified, right, to expand. And I was just looking for some guidance, because obviously I feel for those residents, I mean, it is needed, but at the same time, there's no required notice, at this time. So I didn't know if, my question is, anywhere in here, is there a requirement for a city in order to get these things on here, for that to have taken place?
To my best of understanding, when it comes to the MPO and the programming of our allocation, anything on system, we hand in hand with TxDOT host these public meetings as we did for the May revision cycle. So both virtual, so on our website. I know during the COVID-19 epidemic, we had virtual meetings. Now we have in-person meetings once again, as we did before. So that's the procedure that we follow to engage the public with any new projects, revisions to existing projects, any changes in funding whatsoever. From the MPO side. Now, I know the local governments themselves, whether it's the county or an individual city or TxDOT, also has their public hearings as well, where they engage the public. Now, depending on, I guess, the situation, the timeline of the project would depend on how that's scheduled.
If I may, just recommending that as soon as you identify that there's a project, please engage both the MPO and TxDOT so that we can provide you some guidance to ensure that all the proper steps are being followed, especially when it deals with NEPA and what have you. So please, the sooner we start the conversation, the better.
Okay, great, thank you.
Yes, no problem.
Thank you. We have a motion by Cameron County RMA. Second, Mayor from Mission. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. Motion carries.
Thank you.
Thank you, Rudy. And just to confirm with Luis, public comments ends on March 31st. So if we receive any more revisions, we'll see it in this next meeting. All right, thank you. All right, item 4C, discussion and possible action regarding Texas Administrative Code, Chapter 16 revisions. Eva?
All right. Good afternoon, everyone. This is kind of a follow-up to the conversation we had last month about the fiscal year 24 utilization and the swapping of federal funds. So just to give everyone a clear background on this, on January 17th, there was a minute order passed by the Texas Transportation Commission that officially adopted amendments to the Texas Administrative Code. And these are the sections here that are highlighted and where those amendments and changes were officially changed and codified. And so to pull excerpts from what was included in those TAC revisions, there's a couple of different things that I outline here. It's easier when I have PowerPoint on. But number one, it prescribes an annual review of Category 5 and Category 7 carryover. That's critical. From this moment forward, from this year forward, there will be an annual review of our carryover amounts. Number two, when you think about Category 2, that is funding that is used on priority projects determined by the MPO. And then Category 7 specifically, if an MPO carries over more than 200% of its Category 7 allocation, then TxDOT can reduce the MPO's Category 2 carryover by an equivalent amount and transfer the amount to the district's Category 11. And that is district discretionary. And that allocation goes to safety projects, which we're happy stay in the region. but you can understand the change that is being made through this new TAC revision. And I like to call this a report and notice situation. We're not going to be asked if this can be the carryover gets transferred. We're not going to be needing approval from the board or the Texas Transportation Commission. TxDOT will report to the commission and notify us at the MPOs. So that's one of the changes that's happening. It's already been approved. I think if you remember before Mr. Cannon left, we had kind of touched base that this was coming down the pipeline and there was an opportunity for public comment. That minute order reflects all of the public comments that were received prior to the revision. But the next section that's changed here is regarding the UTP. So it clarifies here what major changes are and what requires adoption by the Texas Transportation Commission, but it clarifies here that that carryover redistribution does not constitute a major change. So again, it's a report and notify situation. So two big things to remember moving forward, regardless, of your project situation and on a statewide level. Number one, federal funds lapse within 4 years of allocation. And number two, we at the RGVMPO need to increase utilization and decrease carryover because of this new rule. And so I kind of went over the math with the Technical Advisory Committee and through the Project Readiness Workshop. But if you utilize one fiscal year's allocation, it's 32.74. That's fiscal year 24 allocation. Our carryover from 23 was $115 million in carryover. That's significant. That makes our revised allocation 147.74. Now, this is not funding that's available. This is funding that is already programmed to projects. But when we look at the letting schedule, we're seeing that only 25.14 million are scheduled to obligate for fiscal year 24. So what does that mean? It means that our carryover for fiscal year 2024, which is the remaining allocation, I'll just kind of highlight it here. It's column D, well, labeled D. It becomes $122.6 million. So in fiscal year 24, we have more carryover than our fiscal year 23 carryover amount. So this is the issue, situation for the RGV. And when you do the math, which I did do it for them. I'm kind of blanking. I don't think I brought my notes for today. But we are carrying 374%, which is about 3.74 years worth of allocation. Again, federal funds lapse after 4 years. When you reduce this amount by the 200% threshold, the 200% threshold is twice the amount of 32.74. So we have about 65.48. And that subtracted from our remaining allocation, we end up having 57.12 that are at risk of transferring. Okay, 57.12 million. Million, yeah, I'm sorry, yes, all this is in the millions. 144 million was our carryover, 115 million is our carryover, 25 million is what's scheduled. So we have this slide, it says proposed because these are a little bit older, but it's already been approved. And we're looking now through the Project Readiness Working Group at our fiscal year schedule or estimated utilization. That's why that's in parentheses. We're going to project how much is going to be estimated year after year based on our project letting schedules. And based on what's currently programmed, and this was from the last adopted TIP and MTP, we'll have to work with Rudy to kind of give you revised numbers with what's been changed more recently. But based on the initial projection that we had, you're seeing that for projects are programmed, and these are good, right? In 2024, we had 16% of utilization rate. If we keep our projects on schedule and our projects obligate on time, then we can utilize 111% of a fiscal year allocation. And the 2026, it's 226%. So we need to stay above the 100% utilization rate in order to decrease our risk of having funds potentially transfer Category 2 to Category 11. So go ahead, Mr. Parker, sorry. Please interrupt me. That's totally fine.
Can you turn on your microphone? Ramiro.
You can speak to them.
I said if TxDOT doesn't use the money that they got transferred to them, can we ask for it back in the next year?
I don't think so because technically it lapses. It's a use it or lose it situation. So we have been carrying over years of allocation. And so if based on projections, the MPO isn't utilizing it. So TxDOT is, instead of us losing it to the federal government, the state is going to say we're going to keep it in the district and we're going to keep it on safety projects and we'll utilize it because our MPO projects are not ready to utilize it. So we keep it in category 11 safety projects. That's how it's written in the new administrative code. Any other questions? That's a good question. We've talked a little bit about what TxDOT's utilization rate might be, but this is really a project readiness, project development situation. So I think you all understand the risk. I think you all understand where we're at with the threshold. But part of the annual review of carryover is that every single fall, TxDOT will be assessing the programming and planned use for funds, and every winter, the leadership will consider implementing this 200% threshold. So we have until now, to the fall, to develop a strategy, assess our programming and our planned use for funds, and demonstrate that we have a path forward to utilize all of our funds, which is 374% today, right? So that's what we've been doing with the Project Readiness Group. We're going to continue to monitor our fiscal year's allocation, what we have scheduled, what our remaining allocation is with the carryover, and then we're going to monitor our utilization rate. And you can see these are our MPOs in Texas, the percent scheduled to allocation. So we really want to see 157%, 200%. We want to see our RGVMPO percentage of utilization move on. So this is an important matter. We need to invest in our project development and development authority, and really get projects ready for construction and ready to let. So what else can I say? That's exactly, only 17% of our allocated MPO funds are scheduled for construction projects. These are projects that were programmed or for previous fiscal years that did not let or obligate. We have a low utilization rate or estimated obligation. This means we have high carryover, high revised allocation amounts, and an increased risk of lapsing funds. So our solution is increase utilization and decrease that carryover. And so we had a project readiness workshop. This is a summary of that workshop. We are going to develop a strategy to optimize the use of federal funds, maintain consistent project development, advance projects from the MTP to the TIP that are more ready for construction, address projects in the TIP that are delayed or unlikely to obligate. And then project reporting is critical to this, and focusing on projects with funds for construction. So we went over some project reporting, and we focused again on projects with construction dollars. I put in bold fiscal year 26 projects because that's where we have our 200%. We did a little bit of math, and I'm not going to go through these are for reference only, but I wanted to demonstrate here for fiscal year 24 as part of a math exercise. We had projects with project phases of C and CE, construction engineering. And so when I did the math there, the MPO math, we had $26,444,000. When we removed the amounts for construction engineering, then we got that $25.14 million from the TxDOT slides. So we have a better understanding of how our utilization rate will be assessed, and that's critical, is not for me to argue how it's being assessed, but for me to understand how it's being assessed and be prepared for how they're assessing the MPO. So this is the list of projects that we went through. I'm not going to go through it. That's for you to be aware. If you do have any specific questions, I know that the one that we highlighted, I believe, is pending functional classification. I can't remember. These were working slides from the workshop. The green ones are pending functional classification. So are there any questions? Yes, this is the end of my slide.
Yeah, just a question on the slide with the fiscal year 2024, page 157, allocation utilization is 13% for 2024. Do we have the utilization percentage the last 3 years?
I don't have it for the past 3 years, but we can look for it.
I was just curious obviously it's probably not as high, but I'm just kind of curious what it was.
I'm curious too. No, that's a good question. We can prepare that and email it.
How much is only this related to last month where we rolled over, 77 million or what?
We didn't roll over. What we did was essentially swap Category 7 STP MM with Category 7 STP Flex. And so it's essentially like using the oldest money first and keeping the newer money.
But is that related to this?
It's semi-related in that it's like preventing the lapsing of federal funds.
What I'm saying is, so that money that we move to flex,
Yeah.
if we go over utilization there, does that then move into safety category?
I'm not sure. No, it won't. That won't be touched for fiscal. It'll be the future fiscal year. The one that we touched last year was only about fiscal year 24. And so now what we're discussing is fiscal year 25, 26, 27.
But what I'm asking is, if we don't recall that money back, or Pete goes over his utilization, and goes to district discretionary, we don't get that back, right? Is it handled the same way?
No, I don't think so. I'll let him speak to it.
Okay, so the key here is that we let projects, we utilize the money so that it's not underutilized, basically. When you start looking at the numbers here, our goal in the FAR district is to let Category 2 projects, just for the benefit of the public and the rest of us here. Category 2 or Category 2 funds are federal funds allocated to the MPO for on-system projects that are on the state system, okay? And so we have had some major challenges, as we've discussed in the past, with acquiring the right-of-way, adjusting utilities, and things of that nature. We're projected to let close to $200 million in the next 3 years of Category 2 projects. What does that mean? This number is basically going to get raised. We're going to utilize the funds that are available to us. The flex was basically the color of money, and I say that in quotes because we're utilizing the older funds first, flexing, moving it over so that we can catch up and hopefully surpass. Eva made a great point of going over 100% utilization per year so that we can start digging in, if you will, to that money that has not been utilized to date. So for the FAR district, it's $57.12 million of funding that's available that has a risk of going from Category 2 to safety projects. Safety is our #1 priority, and that's great, but we also have congestion, mobility needs in our region. So we're going to focus in the next 3 years to make that happen. And just for the benefit of the group, in the next 2024 through 2027, we are expected to let, in the FAR district, all projects included, $2.4 billion in the next 4 years, 24, 25, 26, and 27. If we maintain that, not only on-system projects from TxDOT, but the local government projects that are being pushed forward, we will be able to basically minimize the risk for us. I'm going to take the opportunity to commend Hidalgo County. Hidalgo County for pushing projects like Nolana Loop, $17.5 million for FY 2025. Liberty Boulevard, $14 million for FY 2026. This helps reduce the overall amount in the Category 7, basically from $22.6 million by letting these projects within the next couple of years. That number is then reduced to $91 million. If we continue to do that, we're going to be utilizing the funding that's been available. Eva's point was 3.74. Our allocation is $32 million per year, and we've rolled over 122. That's almost 4 years of capacity that has not been utilized. So thank you, local governments, for the work that you're doing. I think it is imperative for you all to continue to develop those projects. We're working hand in hand with the MPO and TxDOT and the local governments to make that happen. One of the challenges that we're seeing, I say challenge, is we want to make sure that we have the latest and greatest information. I've asked the MPO at Luis, how many of the project forms have been updated? Because this policy board, I think it was June of last year, approved a form, right? In that form, it had basically points allocated per project, where that information includes environmental, schematic, right-of-way, utilities, PS&E, and so on and so forth. Not all forms have been updated, or there may be some information that is outdated, I should say. Okay, so we all need to ensure that all projects identified for the MPO have updated forms so that this policy board can then properly select what projects are in best condition, move those projects ahead, and utilize the money that's available to us. That's big picture. And so we will continue to work with the MPO and the local governments to make that happen. It is if I recall correctly, and I'm going back to the bylaws from our first merger, right, or when we merged back in 2019, there is a stipulation there that states, starting in FY 2020, projects should be ranked and selected by the MPO Policy Board. Folks, we're going to be looking at 2025, and we haven't done that. It is time for us to take a hard look at all the projects, ensure that shovel-ready projects go to the top, and we utilize the monies available to us. We don't want to jeopardize losing any funding available to the RGVMPO. And it takes all of us working together in partnership to make that happen. That's, you know, I gave you the number, the 22 million down to 92 million, más o menos. On the TxDOT side, we're looking at 57 million that we need to get down. And our intent is to do that. We're letting $824 million this fiscal year alone as a whole. And so we'll continue to work towards that. I know I said a lot. I'm going to pause and see if there's any additional questions that I may be able to clarify for you all.
I want to add to what Mr. Alvarez has said. As part of the strategy, as part of our coordination, we want to work through the project readiness workshop or through the TAC, Technical Advisory Committee. We're going to continue every month, talk about project ranking, talk about shovel readiness, bring in the performance measures framework that we did last year, our complete streets policies. So to your point, the project scoring, the project ranking is a requirement from the federal government. That's not just something that we can choose to opt out of, but it's about really incorporating the recommendations that we've adopted, that we've been through, because we understand the challenges in our region. And so we'll be working on that. It's going to be slow, but we want to do it slow and right versus quick and wrong. That doesn't help us. We understand now our challenges in utilization. I think everybody has made it really clear. A lot of people showed up for the project readiness workshop, so we thank you for the additional information and the communication. We know it takes a lot of time, but we're hoping that by doing more time focus on this now, we'll be alleviating issues later. And to answer your question, you know, the category swapping of funds, or even if we do are at risk of this 200% losing 57.12, you know, I wouldn't say it's losing, because even though we wouldn't be able to put it to our MPO selected projects, it still stays in the district. And I think that was something that TxDOT was considerate of. It's going to stay in safety, and we know we have safety needs here. So we'll be paying more attention to the project, the category 2 selection and utilization, because of the carryover and anyway, what ends up being on the category 11 list. So doing more monitoring overall on all of our projects and funding.
Chairman, committee, this is a prime example. What Cameron County is doing for Old Dallas, the 2 projects, and State Highway 550, moving money from Morrison to these 2 projects, is a prime example of what needs to be done. Putting the money on projects that are shovel-ready, that can be expedited and delivered sooner. So kudos to Cameron County for taking this initiative, and I think we can all learn from this. Let's focus our funds on projects that are shovel-ready and move them as needed to ensure that we do not lose any funding.
Eva, I did not attend the workshop, unfortunately. I know we were working on a short list of projects that were immediately at risk. Have we gotten in touch at least with the local governments or the project sponsors of those projects to see if they've submitted the lists and where we are with the list on as far as timing and conditions, and how we can, 4 months, 6 months of time left and within this year is not a long time.
Sure.
And we wouldn't want to catch
We
these
did
folks
go
off guard.
over that, and to look at our category 4 projects, and correct me if I'm wrong, TxDOT, but I think that these are all going to let on time for fiscal year 24. So part of our next group's meeting, we discussed the need to maybe push some projects back, other projects move forward. There was a lot of transparency and communication that occurred. So these slides, project list by fiscal year of the projects and the utilization, that's going to change, and we're going to start seeing change. So the strategy is shaping up. This is our baseline, and we are communicating to kind of, to your point, ensure we're obligating what's on our letting schedule. Any other questions? I know this is a situation, a complex. Great.
I did have, again, Pete, just to go back and revisit this. When we accept this and, because this is an action item for us to approve this, right?
I don't think, I
'Cause
think
it
it's
is an ac-
possible action.
It is,
Oh, it says action, yeah. I wrote it as possible action. We don't require an action, but if you wanted to take action, give us guidance, approve that something happened, we're here to follow your instruction.
Peter, and you're gonna have a tremendous responsibility of making sure we stay under, right? You feel confident that TxDOT will be, because you mentioned letting 3 or 4 years numbers, but it seems like we have some immediate letting that needs to happen
Yes.
in order to protect some of this money. You're confident that TxDOT can
Yes, sir.
reach that?
Yes, sir.
So, because I mean, essentially, you're the savior in the sense of saving this money from going away to safety, right?
Correct.
But we do have full confidence that we'll be able to get this money back into these local projects as they become shovel-ready, so we can eat into that balance that tends to be creeping up right now, correct?
That is correct. When I was making my comments, I talked about project ranking, project selection, and I think that the caveat there is we anticipate having funding allocations available for both Cat 2 and Cat 7 in the future, right? As every year we go through the UTP exercise. The amount is subject to change year after year, right? But we have an idea. It's right around $32 million, right? And we will be utilizing that to help us project what our capacity is. So we would love to be in the other side of this. And the other side means we've already let so much that we're borrowing money from another MPO to be able to let. And I know we're not there yet. I know projects take time to develop, especially in the environmental schematic process. We're sensitive to that. But we need to be taking a proactive approach today for projects we anticipate letting 5, 6, 10 years down the line. And so that's where the challenge becomes. It's in planning and programming. That's where it's all at, folks. Once you get these projects in a row and lined up, then we can reach for those goals. But to answer your question, we feel very confident that we're going to be able to let the projects identify.
And I think that all of us need to take note that when we start ranking these projects, there's probably going to be some hurt feelings, because people are going to be losing money from local projects. It's going to go from one entity to another because it's ready to go, and they're going to start trying to defend, keeping that money inside of their projects. But the solution for all of us is you got to get the project ready. You don't get the project ready, you're going to lose that short-term funding, that tip money, or whatever you want to call it, that is going to get somebody else to construction, because we need to utilize this money. So the moral of all of this story is really we need to continue to advance these projects to letting, or you're going to be, seeing probably some of that money reallocated to other projects, correct?
Can I just add one, Sherman? You hit the nail on the head, Pete. Thank you. The reality is we've been putting this off since we did the merger. And we're at the point now where it hurts all of our interests if we're losing these dollars. And the reality is that if we reallocate, reprioritize, get it to the ones that are ready to go, those projects that while there may be some hurt feelings, all we're doing is we're saying, get them ready, get them shovel ready, and we'll find the funding for them. And that was the whole purpose of doing this. We're seeing the fruits of it, the numbers that we're talking about, and yet we still haven't, we're sitting on all this money, and we need to help him, and we have to help ourselves. We'll get it done if people understand that we're making the pie bigger and bigger and bigger, even though in their mind they're saying, I'm losing the money that's been allocated for my project that's been sitting there, or that I need to make sure it's still there. It'll be there. It will be there.
It will be there, just advance your project.
Exactly.
At the end of the day, we're responsible for bringing these projects to letting.
This is the amazing race. Who can get there first?
But the thing is, that Pete is committing right now to helping us all get AFAs.
That's
Absolutely.
exactly right.
Right?
Within 1 year, we've said that. Within 1 year, you get the AFA so we can develop the projects.
Because we can't advance it without that.
Right.
But, by the same token,
Well, right. But you're gonna help us get to that AFA, because I mean, at the end of the day, we can't get to let until you guys give us the green light on AFAs.
do we all have a rebuttal? A chance for a rebuttal here? There's some AFAs that have been executed 10 years ago that we still haven't delivered.
That's
So
true.
let's work together.
But again, that may be local government stuff, but hopefully, we're moving to a path forward, and I get you.
Yeah.
My recommendation, if I may, is it was tabled at the TAC meeting, if I recall correctly, because we have a meeting scheduled tomorrow with finance, right, Luis, to discuss this further. My recommendation is not take action today, and let's wait for us to have the meeting tomorrow. TAC has a second stab at it next month, and then bring it back to the board.
If it's not a time-sensitive issue, I'm okay with.
Motion to
Make a
table.
motion to Second.
So we have a motion. Who made the motion? Judge? So Cameron County, second by City of Edinburgh. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Eva. Thank you, Pete. We appreciate everybody's participation in that discussion.
Thank you. We'll be back next month with more.
Thank you. Item 4D, discussion and action to approve resolution 2024-09, reprogramming of fiscal year 2021-2022 transportation alternatives set aside TASA Category 9 funds. Eva.
All right, thank you very much. As you may recall, last month, I gave an update on all of our TASA projects, all of the grouped projects, and kind of went over the status. And so the most important are the projects that are in the obligation phase. All of our projects are important, but these are the ones that need to obligate. These are the ones that need to develop on time. And so we discussed at the time last month, we had originally had 3 inactive projects. But by the time we met with policy, ELSA had been active and Harlingen had been active, and we were kind of pending on the city of Hidalgo still. So since right before the technical advisory committee meeting, we did receive a letter that I believe is in your packet, that the city of Hidalgo requested to forfeit and terminate the project. So with that being said, there was initially, Hidalgo County will be taking on the project. It's not going to be let go completely. I believe they're working with the precincts so that the city of Hidalgo still gets the work done that they originally applied for. That's what I understood. Yes, that's what was communicated. And so in all of that, in receiving the letter and understanding that city of Hidalgo still has the support they need, but from the precinct, we have about 70,000 that need to be reprogrammed. So what's specific about this and these 3 projects is that they're all planning projects. Our construction projects are moving forward. They're working on 30% design más o menos for the most part, all of them are. And when we look at our schedule of activities, March 2024 is what we guesstimated as the deadline for final consideration for funding and project changes. And this is to accommodate an AFA amendment. So knowing that this is the last month that we have on our project program schedule of activities in order to obligate on time, we are coming before you today with resolution 2024-09 to reprogram the 70,000 that were originally for the city of Hidalgo and split them equally between the city of ELSA and the city of Harlingen so that they each get an additional $35,000. So originally, ELSA had 46,920, Harlingen had 141,568. So now it would be 81,000 and 176,000. And so they're both close to getting their procurement plan approved so they can proceed with the RFP. And so this is the right time to potentially reprogram funds and do an AFA amendment so they can proceed with the additional funding.
Have both of them been made aware that this money might be allocated to them and they have uses for it?
Yes. Both obviously understood that we were pending policy's approval and that it was going to be determined by the board ultimately how the funds were reprogrammed, but both were tentatively acknowledged that there was a potential they would see additional funds.
And my point was just that they're going to have a use for the monies.
Correct.
If it's allocated.
Yes.
Okay. Is that it?
That's it. The resolution is before you for your consideration.
Okay. Do we have
That's the letter from the city of Hidalgo and then the resolution itself.
As far as the distribution of these additional funds that have been made available, the rest of the other program projects are comfortable with those 2 entities getting the remainder of the
We
available
didn't go
funding?
through, I didn't go through communicating with the other communities. The other 3, Edinburgh, Brownsville, and Hortisville, they all have construction funds, and there's a minimum requirement for the planning dollars that we dedicate. So that's why they weren't communicated with for approval. So I did fail to communicate that to our construction partners with the construction projects. Does anybody have do you see any red flags with that?
No, I'm just saying, because they're saying what privilege did they get to be able to improve or get additional funding? And we could everybody can use additional funding, they're gonna say.
Right. Typically with TASA, we keep construction funds on construction projects and, planning funds on planning
Even at
only.
that, you
Yeah,
get
we
to
don't mix.
do additional amenities for somebody else's project.
Right.
So,
We didn't.
I don't know if how the board sees the fairness
We
of
could-
that distribution of the funding with those other two projects, but just something to consider.
Good point.
Do you have a deadline on this?
I think it would be okay to wait another month if you wanted us to come back.
Didn't you just say that we had a March 24th?
Yeah, it's an internal timeline to keep all the projects on track. So, again, we would want just like the sooner the better, so TechStop can work on their AFA amendments and all the decisions can be made. But I don't think it would, we're in a good shape right now because we've been keeping everything on track. That maybe 1 more month would be okay unless you see another problem with it.
Well, I would look at it that the sooner we make the decision, the better for people to be able to move. Otherwise, it's gonna be delaying even more. My recommendation is that we move forward, with this, and then, as TASA funds become available or things change, well, then we'll address it at that point.
I
But
don't anticipate anyone having a problem with this recommendation.
It's not a lot of money.
The other communities have construction funds only. They're not utilizing TASA funds for engineering. Right. Typically with TASA, if you receive construction dollars, the local government pays for all of the engineering and the planning work that gets done. Typically.
I move to approve.
Thank you.
second.
We have a motion by Cameron County, a second by TechStop. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thank you, Eva. And
Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. Item 5, presentations and reports. Item A, presentation and discussion regarding RGVMPO's Bike Ped Program Annual Update. Eva, you may not sit down.
The other day,
I have one more item after
Continue.
this. No, I know, I juggle a lot, but it's okay. I'll be really quick. And I want to say, Ramon, I did learn a lesson. I will do better at communicating with all of our project groups next time, and I appreciate that. I think constructive criticism is good. I'm a fan. But for the Bike Ped Program update, this is something I do every year since I started at the MPO. This is nothing new. We adopted an active transportation plan in December of 2020. There were 3 goals and there were 5 areas of success identified. And we at the MPO received a list of initiatives and recommendations based under these 5 areas of success. So I can really briefly go over out of the 6 initiatives recommended for planning and design. We've initiated 4 out of 6. So I think we're doing really good in implementation of all of these. You have all the details in your packet, but Clarissa Gonzalez helps us with the regional design standards. This is a new initiative that we're kicking off. We just did a literature review at the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. We're going to continue to determine ways that we can incorporate regional design standards for our active transportation network. We also have a facility inventory. We annually collect data and add new trails or new bike lanes and facilities. This year, Miguel is helping us with adding transit data. We're going to have a training mid to late April. So we're adding and updating all of our transit data across the transit providers. We have a bicycle and pedestrian counter program. I did submit a letter of intent to the Valley Baptist Legacy Foundation because we need to replace our loggers and batteries. If we don't get funding, Luis and I have talked about potentially amending our UPWP in order to get funding from our Complete Streets account and line item in the MPO's budget, but that's to be determined. Our regional data portal, I've added, Miguel keeps up a lot of our info, Melanie as well, and Alma has done our crash and safety data there's a dashboard for it. So all of that is part of our regional data portal. And so then our next area of success is policy and programs. We've initiated 2 out of 4. This is the Complete Streets Policy and the Advisory Committee. So again, Clarissa helps with Complete Streets, and we're going to be incorporating a lot of these Complete Streets recommendations into our our Safe Streets for All action plan. We have an advisory committee. Our Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee meets bi-monthly. I'm on the Texas Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee. I'll be traveling for our quarterly meeting in 2 weeks. But we continue to stay engaged and align ourselves with the state and our programming. So education and encouragement, we've initiated 3 out of 6. I think that there's some changes happening with bike share. That's still to be determined. It might come down later, but Mr. Logan and the Valley Metro specifically monitors this. It's out of the MPO. It's just in our active transportation plan. We want to be promoting more walking and biking months. May is National Bike Month. We're looking for community events. We're encouraging our cities to put on more, recreation activities to encourage that. I will be biking to work on National Bike to Work Week. That'll be fun. We have a media awareness campaign. We did distribute bike helmets and bike lights. We were waiting to see if we got a public information officer on board so we could do more safety data, but there's a lot of things that exist under TxDOT, so we might be doing some share the road campaigns, continuing to promote and provide media awareness, again, to just remind everyone to be safe on our roads so we could reduce serious injuries and fatalities. And that brings us to safety. We used to have law enforcement officer training in 2023. I didn't do much. In 2024, I would like to bring that back up as potential, maybe in alignment with the Safe Streets for All action plan and getting that perspective from first responders. And then that's really where we're at, is we're gonna be kicking that off. Melanie has sent an email off asking individuals if they're interested in joining the steering committee. And we've already met with the consultants for a timeline, and we'll be adopting that plan later this year. Under active tourism, we actually haven't initiated any of the 3 recommendations from our active transportation plan, but there is progress on potentially designating United States bicycle routes. We've been pending TxDOT at the state level to develop a designation request process. My understanding is that they are doing that, so we could be the first county or region to have a United States bicycle route designated. And just in case you're thinking, oh, Eva, you do whatever you want, you're just implementing whatever you think is fun. No, I survey every year to determine what people in active, engaged bicycle and pedestrian advisory committee members, what they want, and that's how we determine what initiatives get initiated, and obviously based at a capacity level. So I have a plan on how to move all these needles forward. Like I said, I do juggle, we juggle a lot. I don't just do project management, funding management, it's program management, but it's all here, and I'll take any questions. It's just an annual update. Yes, sir. Yeah.
So I'm wondering what you can do to market it. I think some people don't even know it's there
Yeah.
and encourage use of it.
I love that. Yeah, what we need to do better is branding and marketing.
Can we use those funds in Brownsville to market our trails or something, or have some events?
Yeah, definitely. I'll talk to, I'll see what we have in our inventory, and I'll bring it up as part of the bike to walk events and our marketing awareness, our media awareness campaign, because I think you're right. We need to highlight, hey, this is the Precinct 2 linear trail. This is the West Rail Trail. This is the San Benito has a beautiful Resaca Haven Trail. But I think you're right. I think we could definitely promote during that month specifically, really highlight our facilities.
I think every month you'll have an opportunity, whether it's
Yes.
Obesity Month, Diabetes Month.
True, true.
Like, all of these different things are going to encourage healthy lifestyle. And if you can say, get out on our trails, there's a trail system near you, and you partner up with these entities, you might be able to get some free PSA type stuff.
Definitely.
If you just encourage them and make them aware of that this is part of engagement in them getting into a healthier lifestyle.
Yeah, if you do have communications or media teams that we could work with, please let us know. We'd be happy to talk about the data that we have on our website and where they could find other tools and resources.
And so they have a good time plan your route on windy days, or you're gonna have a
Yeah.
Forgive me if it's redundant, but you have a landing site on a web page somewhere that has a trail system, like a master trail system?
We do have an active transportation map specifically. If you go to mpo.org, and then there's like RGVMPO.org, and then there's maps. Active transportation map is specific for trails and bike lanes. Yeah. That's my annual update. Oh, I will say also, we do have a Vision Zero Texas training that we're already planning for June 5th. We're already taking registration, so we'll be sure to bring that up again during our steering committee meetings. We want to see first responders, law enforcement, and planners and engineers at that training. So there'll be more to come on what we can offer the region. Thank you.
You are not off the hook, because you're on 5B as well.
It's my last one.
Presentation and discussion regarding carbon reduction program projects.
Yeah, you can't say that I'm not busy trying to help the region. But For the carbon reduction program, we're going to do another quarter one update. I'm just going to speed through it. You know where the apportionment comes from, the allocation. It's what's designated under the BIL or what's designated under the UTP. We have a federal funding process. It follows all the other same federal funding process. I keep that in there as a refresher. This is kind of the breakdown of how CRP funds, carbon reduction program funds, are coming from the federal government to the state and then designated to the MPO. This is what the UTP reflects for the RGVMPO specifically, the FAR district area. And then they're kind of color-coded, so I could talk about the grouped projects list that we have so far. And I will say that Texas does have a statewide carbon reduction strategy that they recently just approved, so we're learning more about strategies to reduce carbon emissions. These are the different categories they have. This is in your packet. And so we're looking for project eligibility based off of these strategies, and that's why I included it, is because if you did want to get CRP funds or Category 10 funds, that this is the eligibility type of requirements or that we're looking at. But to go really quickly, fiscal year 22 to fiscal year 24, funding was allocated to the MPO. We have the FAR International Bridge to let in fiscal year 24 in order to obligate all of those funds and reduce, increase utilization, decrease Category 10. So you're going to see something really unique here in that CRP funds are almost requested to obligate the same year that they're allocated so that we can keep utilization 100% from the very beginning. You know what I mean? Like pretty high. So when it comes to fiscal year 25 and 26, these are programmed in the TIP, and this is how much the federal amount is and when they're scheduled to let. So you'll see funding allocation and then when they're scheduled to let, and they're like in alignment to, again, keep utilization rates pretty high. Then we have programmed in the MTP. We don't have a quarter one status because, again, they're in the MTP, they're not in the TIP. These are programmed, these fundings are from fiscal year 27, and they're scheduled to let in fiscal year 27. But you can see we have fiscal year 28 at the top here. So that is what we're coming to you today for discussion. We need to shortlist a project, and I say one project, because there's like an eligibility review, and that's kind of what this is. You don't need to know the details, but just the big picture. Project selection, we're shortlisting projects, eligibility review by the federal government, and then once we determine it, then we can officially program it. And so there's other considerations for submittals. We want to group these projects, and that provides more flexibility for administrative changes. And so looking at the short list of projects for recommendations, I just want to say that we kind of did the math. We tentatively have about 1.179 million available to shortlist with fiscal year 28 funding. And so we looked at what is eligible. All TASA projects are eligible. And we looked at the most recent competitive process, and this was the 23-24 call for projects. There were 2 projects here that did not get funded because part of the eligibility, and some of the slides I burned through, is that TxDOT and the federal government don't want to mix carbon reduction program funds with other categories of funding. And so, long story short, we're looking at the Hidalgo County Precinct 1 trail to partially fund with what we have available, or to shortlist to determine eligibility before we proceed. And then the second project was the Dennett Road Gap. And so I put here, they requested 3.5 million. There's only 1.179 available, so they're still not getting their full request. If we program this for fiscal year 28, that's another key point to this. But just to understand project readiness, they do have plans, specs, and cost estimates. They do have some, they did a visual survey. They've looked at their drainage ditches and what permits, it would not require permits from the U.S. Army Corps of Engineers. They did not have a lot of the right-of-way, though. 30 to 45% of needed right-of-way is in place, but they have 100% of like no issues with utilities or railroad coordination. And so just to kind of stop that, again, this is for fiscal year 28, but the Dennett Road Gap requested 1.3 million in funding. If we shortlisted them for fiscal year 28, they would still not get their full funding requests, but they don't have any information for their plans, specs, or cost estimates or environmental documentation. However, they do have 100% with their railroad and utility coordination and 100% of their right-of-way. So with that, again, the purpose is to shortlist a project to solicit concurrence on eligibility. There's only 1.179 million available to shortlist, and the project selected should be prepared to be ready to let prior to fiscal year 2028. So around, again, utilization with the fiscal year of programming. Any questions? This is under your information this time. I think that we discussed moving forward with the Precinct 1 as our shortlisted project. And just to be aware, in fall of 2024, RGVMPO staff will develop a competitive process so that we can have call for projects with a scoring criteria, a program guide, and application. Any questions? That was my last slide.
So, I mean, I appreciate it. Mayor and I were talking about maybe arm wrestling. See who gets
I'm here
it.
for it.
But, so I know that you did the rankings, and your
Yeah.
recommendation was to go with the one that was higher ranked, right?
Right.
And I'm okay with that. I will point out, it's kind of it's a city and county project, because it does connect to the city of Westlaco.
Right.
But are you asking for us to take action on this today?
So we're there. This is actually under information in your agenda today. We're going to determine eligibility, and once we have officially gotten that from FHWA, we'll come back around May for official action. Okay? Great. All right. Thank you all so much.
Any other comments for Eva before she finally leaves? No. Thank you, Eva. Item C, presentation on RGVMPO attainment status. Clarissa Gonzalez.
Yes, good afternoon. This is a quick information item regarding the designation status for the Lower Rio Grande Valley area, and this was in response to an inquiry during the February Policy Board meeting. So our current designation status, determined by the EPA, is attainment. This means that the air quality sensors in our area are reporting numbers that meet national air quality standards. Areas in non-attainment are unable to attain, maintain, or meet air quality standards, and it's associated with extra responsibilities and actions specifically for transportation planning. The Clean Air Act calls for those 6 air pollutants to be monitored, and each pollutant has numerical standards with varying average time periods, like for instance 1 hour average or 8 hour average, or it also has it alongside different forms of limits, like it cannot exceed this value more than once per year, or like the 98th percentile average over 3 years must be less than this amount. A list of the standards is linked in the bottom right resources. So that table shows how the valley compares to other non-attainment areas. And if you notice, the RGV is consistently in the mid-50s, while the other areas are in the 60 to 70 range. It's important to note that those numbers reflect averages as of March for ozone levels, and that those numbers are significantly, they change during the summer months. So the values will change throughout the year. That map shows where the TCEQ has sensors monitoring air quality and what type of pollutant is being measured. The essential point is that compliance with the standards and the monitoring of air quality is ongoing, even with our designation status, and that proactive measures to preserve the air quality are still encouraged, as mentioned in the resilience and sustainability analysis produced last year. Thank you.
Are there any questions? Thank you, Clarissa.
Thank you for the information.
Clarissa, can I ask one question?
Yeah, of course. Yes, sir.
Who determines the sites to put the testing sensors at?
That is TCEQ, Texas
Center.
Commission of
Commission on
Environmental
Environmental
Quality.
They're the ones who determine where?
They determine where the sensors go.
And is there some kind of criteria that they utilize, or?
I'm certain, I don't know exactly what the criteria is, but some of the sensors were removed for certain air quality pollutants. For certain air pollutants.
The reason we're asking is Matamoros have fires all the time and all sorts of stuff going on over there that it's affecting grounds.
I'm just curious
Yeah.
how close that is, or where the exact location is. Can you find that out for us?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
And the link to this map is also on the resources tab.
Does it have the specifics?
It has a it has the
Location?
specific locations, and it also shows what they're reporting hourly. But if you check it in March, it won't show the same numbers that it's going to show during the summer months. So you can see a number that's really low in March because there's not that much sun UV rays that are affecting the way the pollutants are recorded. But it was asked in TAC to see if the emissions in Mexico are being recorded in our sensors, and it is. But we were also told that the air quality, or the emissions that we're releasing in our area gets taken up north to Dallas sensors, Houston sensors, and San Antonio sensors. So,
Well, then in that case, they're responsible for everything that comes down our hill.
they also are attainment, so they have CMAQ funds to utilize for
That's interesting.
those things. And also, so you notice that the Matamoros one, or it's actually in Brownsville, but it's near Matamoros. It's the blue. It says that it's recording PM 2.5, which is a small particle, and the way that sensor is affected by something that we can kind of control is the border crossings has significant congestion, right? And so all of the breaks at the border crossing because of the wait times is affecting that sensor.
That's the federal government.
Yeah. Yeah.
CBP at work, yeah.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you, Clarissa. We'll move on to 5D, Federal Functional Classification Status Update. Luis?
Yes, sir. Good afternoon, everybody. So here, we have a table that's been updated. I know it's been some time since we've presented on federal functional classification overall. So we do have a couple of categories here by color. So starting at the top, and these are all the resolutions that we've had passed since the merger, pretty much since 2020. So the first one at the top is IBTC. So IBTC is currently with TPMP still awaiting review before being passed on to federal highways. So that one, and then we have Morrison Road with the same situation. That one is also with TPMP, nearing also, which is the one that we were actually discussing earlier about the swapping of moving around of funds. So that's another one that's also pending FC, coming around pretty soon. And then we have East Loop and the surrounding area, which is the one that we actually got approval for just this past month. So that one, we still have it at the MPO office. We were actually acquiring some traffic counts for Southport Connector. So we're gonna analyze those counts and hopefully include them within the submittal to further justify the requesting of the federal functional classification. Going further down, we have the Russell Road and International Drive. Those are two that were already acquired FC. I do want to mention that it's important to note that any new constructions that do acquire federal functional classification are being put on what's called the proposed FC status. Therefore, there has to be progress done on the project recorded on an annual basis by TxDOT in order to continue to have that designation. Therefore, the designation will be in a permanent status once the project is completed and finally constructed. And therefore, you know, the FC status stays with the project once it's completed. So that's just one note that I do want to add. So if you have any new FC requests that are new constructions, that's where they're going to be awarded. If they hopefully do get awarded by federal highways, it's going to be in that status. Los Ébanos, that's one that's currently, we had some updates to that one, so we sent that one back to TxDOT. So that one right now is being reviewed and should be, hopefully we'll hear back soon on that one as well. Russell Road, this is one that's a little bit different than our usual federal functional classification requests, because this one came is coming directly from the MPO. Since we had a previous submittal that was already approved, that was a 1 mile stretch. So Federal Highways actually recommended to the MPO that we request a longer stretch for planning purposes. So we're taking it all the way from Ruth Road all the way to Sugar Road, which is a much larger stretch. It's an existing roadway. It's going to be, we're asking for the lowest classification, which is an urban minor collector, but it'll be eligible for federal funds upon review and, of course, approval from Federal Highways. And the last two, which are upcoming, pending the STIP revision we're currently in, is Nolana. So as soon as we get the approval of those, we'll start working on those federal functional classification requests as well. And that's all I have as far as an update. If there's any questions on the federal functional classification, I could take them. Yes, sir.
Yeah, I just had a question on Russell Road.
Yes.
Would it make sense to extend it to 281, since we're going to Sugar Road?
It's currently functioning classified from that point on. So we took all the gap that wasn't
got it.
functioning classified. Yes, sir, we made sure to capture that. Definitely, you're welcome.
Good question. Any questions for Luis?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. If not, we'll move on to 5E, RGVMPO Executive Director's Report and Update.
Okay.
Luis?
Yes, sir. For this one, I pretty much just have the budget to share. We're well within. We should have spent a total of $885,217, but we've expended $606,148, so we're well within. I wanted to also share, that how I extended the possibility of us, the MPO, going and visiting with the local governments. That still is out there. So just keep that in mind. If for whatever reason, any questions or need for a meeting, just let us know and we'll coordinate it. But other than that, that's all I have for my update. Thank you.
Any questions for Luis on the budget? And again, any requests with respect to a visit from him to further explain some of the processes or some direction and guidance, their staff is available. Item 5F, TxDOT Project Status Report.
Good afternoon, Policy Board. Yes. My name is Arlene Garcia. I'm one of the project engineers at the Furry office, and today I will be covering the construction project updates for the projects in Hidalgo County. Oops. Our first project is FM 1015 South. The limits are from I-2 to a little over 2.5 miles south. The contractor's Texas Cordia Construction. We're at 9% completion, and we estimate to be completed in August 2025 with weather permitting. In this picture, we can see the Texas Cordia construction crews working on the lime-treated subgrade from 18th Street to Texas Street. This also shows the Texas Cordia crews working on the lime-treated subgrade south of 18th Street. Now for FM 1015 South, the limits are from mile 9 to I-2, a distance at about a little bit over 1.5 miles. The contractor is Ream Construction. We're at a 4% completion, and the estimated completion is April 2025. Here we can see the Ream Construction crews scarifying the existing subgrade to prepare it to add the lime. And here we can also see them, the Ream Construction crews scarifying the existing subgrade to go ahead and add the lime slurry, and this is from Barbie Drive all the way to mile 8.
Hi, good afternoon, members of the board. I'm here to present the Cameron County projects. My name is Yahaira Marroquin. I'm a project manager at the San Benito area office. We're presenting today the I-69 ramp reversal project. This one has the limits from Industrial Boulevard to Loop 499 in Primera Road. The scope of work is the northbound and southbound ramp reversal. The contractor is Foremost Paving, and we're at 57% complete. This project is estimated to be completed in December 2024. So we're currently the contractor is working on removing the existing riprap and the Meadowing guard fence to accommodate for that on-ramp that they're going to be constructing soon. This is in the southbound, and they're also working on installing all the drainage on the northbound and the southbound of the project. They're also working on the frontage road, doing the driveways throughout that southbound lane. If you guys have any questions, comments? Yes.
On the improvements to Highway 48 for the project, LNG project, how are the trucks going to turn around and come back towards Brownsville? Because I don't see anything happening in that part, how you're going to safely turn them.
So, Frank, just to make sure we understand the question, you're talking about the trucks that are coming in, say, from State Highway 550 along 48, deliver.
And then they're coming out and they want to go back out. I haven't seen them doing it, or else I'd maybe see how they were doing it.
Not being as familiar
Is
with
there-
the project, but I would imagine that there's some internal circulation in the construction site where they come out, they'll be able to make the maneuver.
My understanding was
No,
that
there's a,
there was a turnaround past it at the moment, no?
there's a concrete median in front, in the middle between the both two-way traffic, so.
It's further
North. I
It's
guess.
further.
Yeah.
Yeah, further north, or probably, okay. We will look into that, Frank. I'm not familiar with that location.
Okay.
But we will definitely follow up. She's taking note.
Yes, sir. We'll take note of that. Thank you.
I had a question, or a couple of questions. One, obviously, is the interstate. How's that going along?
The interchange?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still looking at a June substantial completion date at this time. Driving over here this afternoon, I was at that intersection underneath, and I was looking at there's so much going on. They put up beams on Cage. They're removing excess concrete piles and dirt and what have you. There's a lot of stuff happening. Our anticipated substantial completion is still June 2024.
And the second question was related to the 1015 project. That's 3.5, almost 4 miles of improvements. Are you doing anything to drainage along that stretch?
The scope is full with a rehabilitation. There are some drainage items, but I'm not very familiar with the scope, but I can definitely look into that for you and give you an update in the next one.
Yes, so typically when we have rehabilitation jobs, it's focusing on the road pavement itself. But if there's any issues with the drainage, we address them as we go. The project towards the south, if you will, has a urbanized area, curb and gutter, and then a rural area. Project to the north has all curb and gutter. So we don't anticipate affecting the curb and gutter, if you will, the drainage in that area. North of this project, we have identified some projects that will improve the drainage along 1015, namely from mile 12 to State Highway 107.
Is there anything that we can do to not restrict, but like encourage these 18-wheelers to not leave 1015? What they're starting to do is turn and get onto Pleasant View and bypass all of that 1015 traffic by going on county roads. And they're tearing up the streets, they're causing all kinds of rutting. Obviously, it's more dangerous when they get into a residential area. So I don't know if there's anything we can legally do to keep them on 1015 or encourage them to stay there.
So unless there's a restriction, a resolution, or an ordinance in place by the city and/or the county restricting that movement, they would be allowed to do that. If there is a resolution or ordinance in place, then it becomes an enforcement issue.
Sounds good. Any other questions on the TxDOT projects?
Thank you.
Okay, thank you all very much. Item 6, other business. And next RGVMPO policy is scheduled for April 24th. Yeah, I'll just read the MPO policy board is scheduled for next April 24th at 1:30. Somebody had a,
Yeah, Chairman, just real quick, I wanted to bring up, there was attention about I had a discussion with Peter on the funding of projects, and I just wanted to bring up to the board I know the merger was great at the MPO, and that we have more funding. And correct me if I'm wrong, Pete, unless I misunderstood you, but we still have 2 MSAs in our region, right? The McAllen-Edinburgh MSA and then the Brownsville MSA. And my question is that keeping us from getting that much more funding? And if that's the case, I would ask all our leaders of the region that the next step is we need to merge our MSAs into one. Okay, I think from a business standpoint, when our areas are evaluated for investment purposes, that's what's looked at. MSAs, not county level, it's MSA level. So right now, we have 2 MSAs. You know, we're not looked at as one region, one voice as we're advocating. And so I think it'll involve, federal action on that. But I really would like everybody to kind of take that into consideration and see what we can do to kind of get on board to merge our MSAs into one.
Mayor, I can tell you that was discussed during the merger discussions, and but obviously everybody's got to be on the same page with regards to that. But I certainly we'd be in favor of reigniting those discussions and moving forward, because I think there's a lot more benefit to be gained by us doing that as an MSA as opposed to having the 2 separate ones.
Well, do you you want to speak to that, Pete? I don't want to put you in the spot, but unless I misunderstood you, I think we'd be able to qualify or at another level. Is that correct, or I misunderstood? But
So we were thinking, before 2020, there was actually 3 MSAs, Brownsville, Harlingen, San Benito, and Hidalgo County. After the 2020, I think they put Brownsville, Harlingen all in one, and then obviously Hidalgo County. We were thinking that all 3 were going to be combined in the 2020 census. Obviously, that did not happen.
Right.
Power in number, as they say, if we were to be merged as one MSA, I can only see that being beneficial to the region as a whole, as far as funding is concerned, not just for transportation, but for many other overall. So, we at TxDOT defer to the federal government as far as all those classifications, if you will. But it can only help, Mayor, to your point.
I just want to bring up everybody's attention and see if it's something that, there is support that we kind of start working on something that can help us do that.
We could bring that forth for tech and policy of next month. We'll do some research and see what we bring back to the board.
Real quick, Pete, have you seen an increase in your budget as being a mega district?
So, yes.
You said mega, right?
So yes, obviously, we have seen an increase in the FAR district when it comes to our funding, our UTP funding. I mean, from basically 596 million in 2017 to 3.6 billion today. We'll see what 2025 UTP numbers bring. But just to be clear, that we have seen increase in funding in all districts, right? We've been blessed to have had Prop 1 and Prop 7, 2014, 2015 timeframe were passed, and now we're reaping the benefits and getting additional funding our way. So yes, Frank, to answer your question, we are getting additional funding. And as we continue to grow as an MPO and in the region, we anticipate that the UTP numbers will continue to increase year after year.
And they upgraded your engineers' salaries and everything too? So I understood that we can get higher paid engineers that way too in this district and bring in more engineers?
Frank, if you're referring to the metro designation for the district, I think that's.
I guess that's what I meant.
Yeah, the metro designation.
What the term was. Yeah.
Yes, my understanding is there is an item in tomorrow's TxDOT Commission meeting that will present this proposal, if you will, for not the FAR district, but in general, the designation of metro, urban, and rural districts. There is an item on the commission meeting tomorrow where we will open up a public comment period, if you will, to address that.
But mega sounds so much cooler, though.
Do we need to respond that we want, I mean, do we need to comment on the public as board members, just saying we want?
I defer to the chair as to how he wants to answer that question.
Why don't we discuss that, and we'll try to figure out a plan of action on how to move forward.
Okay.
Only because it's not on the agenda, and I don't want to get too far off of that.
I just heard it's political because other guys don't want us to get it.
We'll organize. Just as a side note, not necessarily as new business, but just general comment. First, thank you to Starr County for these cool little early Easter presents, right? And then second, happy Easter to everybody. Hope you have a safe holiday season with your families. Please be safe, especially if you're traveling over this next weekend. God bless all of y'all. And with that, it is now 2:48, and we will adjourn this meeting. Thank you.